Have you ever wondered what my favorite Morrigan moment is from the Irish lore? Well, Dagda Agus Vulture. Hi, hello, and welcome. It's John O'Sullivan here from the Irish Pagan School. And I thought I'd share with you just the answer to exactly that, my favorite Morrigan moment. Now, of course, there are many moments of the Morrigan through Ireland's mythological cycle, but as well also into the Ulster cycle. So she's a very present deity in many ways, but also very mysterious and also pivotal, but then also absent. There's a lot of different things to consider when we talk about the Morrigan, but I do have a personal favorite Morrigan moment. And to kind of give it the proper fitting or the proper setting for it, it is in the mythological cycle. It comes from the Moytura, the battle, a second known as the Second Battle of Moytura, and this is when we're dealing with the Fomorian invasion of Ireland and the continued attempts to oppress the Tuatha Dé Danann. So, to give the rave scale or the before story, um, Bress was placed as king in Ireland, but he favored his Fomorian ancestry over his Tuatha Dé Danann ancestry. He favored his father's people over his mother's people to the degree that he forced an imbalance in there, and the Tuatha Dé Danann, even the heroes and champions of the Tuatha Dé Danann, were placed in indentured servitude. From Oma, the champion of the Tuatha Dé Danann, who couldn't be the place, the only Tuatha Dé Danann who couldn't be displaced from the seat of kingship or the seat of the champion within the Hall and Tara, he had to go fetch firewood for the feasting hall in Tara every single day. The Dagda, like the good god of the Tuatha Dé Danann, was set to dig the trenches of Rathbresh, which would become Tara. And time and again, like the people of the chieftains, the leaders of the Tuatha Dé Danann, didn't find any hospitality in the House of Bress, so much so that he was eventually deposed. But he didn't end there. Bress went back to his Fomorian people, and he went to his father, a guy called Elotha, and he pleaded with Elotha for an army. And he was like, I need an army. I want to go back and take Ireland. And Alotha, to his credit, was like, why should you get by force that which you could not keep by just rule and hospitality? But Bress would not be swayed. He then goes further on, going to the more warlike kings of the Fomorians, this being Indech Mac Down and the very famous Balor of the Baelai. And with them, he finds sympathetic ear, and they do raise the war host for the invasion. Now, back in Ireland, the Tuatha Dé Danann, Nuada had been restored as king with the toppling of Bress. He knows he's not the right guy for the for another war because he led the people in the first battle at Moytura, and that's where Lugh steps into the picture. Lugh goes and becomes the king, but the Nuada then Gwivnu, Dienkhecht, Alma, the Dagda, and I think one or two other big names go off for a year to have a conference to figure out what's going to happen after the fact. And it's referred to as the meeting of the men of the goddess. And so they are all pretty much aware what's going to be coming, that it's not over with Brest, that they are going to face some form of reprisal from their ancestral enemies, the Fomorians. Where is the Morrigan in all of this? Don't worry, folks, I'm getting there. And it's brilliant. It's one of my most favorite parts of it. So the meeting of the men and the goddess goes on for a year, at the end of which the doctor's like, we need more fucking information. And so he leaves the meeting of the men and the goddess and he goes, as it says, to a place, a ford on the River Unshan near Glen Etchin, where he kept a house. And you might think, well, obviously, my favorite Morrigan moment is the couple at the meeting at the ford. It's actually not. Now, that is a very core part of it. I have explored that in narrative, and I think there's a lot more there that goes on. But essentially, the Dagda meets this woman. They like she's washing herself with one leg in between each parts of the landscape, and then he couples with her. The ford is then called the bed of the couple because they are a wedded couple, and it is then said that that woman is the Morrigan. Now, this is where the translation comes in for my favorite Morrigan moment. It's not about the couple, it's not about them being like wedded together. It's what comes afterwards. He knows needs more information. He goes to her, goddess of prophecy here, and she tells him after their coupling, and this is the translation. This is actually the Elizabeth Grey translation. I'm going to read it out for you here. Then she told the Dagda that the Fomori would land at Magcregna and that he should summon the Aes Donna of Ireland to meet her at the ford of Unshan. and that she herself would go into Skechna and destroy Indech Mac the Dowan, the king of the Favora, and would take from him the blood of his heart and the kidney of his valor. If that is not a straight up fucking threat, curse, promise, that is, I don't know what is. So she specifically says this is where they're going to be, and it is going to come to a battle. You need to gather everyone together and get them ready for this. But in the meantime, I'm going to go and particularly fuck up this one guy, particularly fuck up this one warlord, Indech Mac Dadan. And so one wonders why specifically Indech. Why would why not Balor? Balor whose glimpse from his eye could like decimate entire war hosts with the poison of his gaze. Why not Bress? Why not take him down for having caused all of this shit? Up until this point, there's mention of the warlords. There's mention specifically of Balor with Bress going, and there's mention of Tethra, another kind of Fovera king that Oma eventually promises to kill, which he does. But why specifically Indech? And that is that at this point of the story, I'm like, well, why particularly that guy? It does then carry on. The translation carries on and says, later, she gave 2 handfuls of blood to the hosts that were waiting at the ford of the Unshan. So she went off to take care of business. The Dagda got the hosts together. They all arrive at Unshan and they wait, and she comes back. And she doesn't come back empty-handed. She comes back literally 2 fistfuls of blood. She comes back crimson-handed, dual-fisted, crimson-handed, with the blood of his heart and the valor of his kidneys. Now, it's said that the Ford of the Unshan, the name became the Ford of Destruction because of that destruction of the king. So at this particular point in everything, like there's been the forecast. We know there's going to be an invasion. The invasion hasn't happened yet. The Dagda gathers all the war hosts together. The Morrigan's like, this is how it's going to go down. But in the interim, I'm going to specifically go and fuck this guy up. And she then comes back when everything's about to kick off with the fistfuls of blood, having done what she said she would do, making it one of my favorite Morrigan moments. But there's an extra layer to this that we only realize later on as we read more of the story, because Indech is not dead. He is not dead, but it's still renamed the Ford of Destruction for the destruction of that king. He is destroyed, but he is not dead. It's almost as if his doom hath been written by the Morrigan's actions and that it is just going to fulfill. Again, one of my favorite Morrigan moments. What happens after this fact is they know they're going to arrive in Maccaigna, and I'm still trying to pronounce that right, sorry. Maccaigna, Cephadine. So they know where they're going to arrive, and the Dagda is then sent to spy on the Fomorians in their arrival. So he kind of dumbs down his dress and he kind of goes as an oafish demeanor to try and figure it out and to try and prevent the war. There's a particular story, a particular element of that story there, but the Fovera chieftain he meets is Indech. Indech Mac the Downa. He is there. He is the leader of that fraction of the war host which is arriving. And so the Dagda ends up having a really fucking rough time. He treats him like the Indech puts him through really bad hospitality, forces him to eat an entire cauldron worth of gruel out of a gravel pit in the ground. He then treats him with such disrespect to the point almost causing offense that if the Dagda were to rile against it or kind of stand up or cry out against it, that could justify the invasion because Indech technically offered hospitality of the meal, technically welcomed them in, but it's everything is this twisted parody of hospitality or corruption of what is the rules that the Dagda is honor bound to stick by. And so what happens after that is the Dagda leaves the meeting all bloated and distended because he had to eat everything or cause offense. He then meets Indech's daughter, who is not given a name. Her name is never listed in the texts that we have. She is just referred to as the daughter of Indech, and she treats the Dagda like shit. She actually literally kicks the shit out of him. She demands that he demean himself by carrying her around on his back naked, and then later on she demands sexual interaction with him at a fort. Now, this is almost a narrative mirroring of the union of a couple in the fort, and then this twisted parody of intimacy or feigned intimacy that happens again at a fort. Now, through all of this, the Dagda endures through all of this. He doesn't give offense. He doesn't cause harm. He pretty much sacrifices everything, physicality, dignity, everything to try and not justify what is happening. At the end of which, Indech's daughter changes sides. So why is this my favorite Morrigan moment? Well, maybe you actually have it because the section I read to you occurs before the Fomorians arrive, before anything actually happens with Dagda being sent to spy on them, anything like that at all. The Morrigan knows where they're going to arrive, but to my mind, maybe she also knows what is going to happen, what is going to happen to her wedded couple, to her partner, to the Dagda. So why specifically does she promise to go into Skekna and destroy Indech Mac Downa, the king of the Favore, taking the blood of his heart and the valor of his kidneys? They then later turn up with two fistfuls of blood going, I totally fucking destroyed that guy, even though he's technically still alive. Well, because she knew what was going to happen. And Indech's doom is writ. It really is. He manages to make it to the battle, but he does not survive it. And again, Indech's daughter changes allegiances, joins the side of the Tuatha Dé Danann to fight against her people, despite all of the the pressure and the intensity that is put upon her by her father, Indech Dan the Downa. So my favorite Morgan moment is the fact that not only do we see her in her poetic prophecy kind of section here, we also see her in her battle form where she literally turns up with a fistful of fucking blood. We see her in her authority state, the Great Queen call the Aes Donna, bring them here, for the battle. But maybe, just maybe, we have a glimpse or a sight of her as a partner to the Dagda, what it is, what is it like for their union, they are as a couple from the bed of the couple. So, thank you very much for joining me for this brief moment of insight on my Morrigan moments. What is your favorite Morrigan moment? If you are reading about the goddess, if you're studying the goddess, if you're interested about the goddess, maybe let me know in the comments. What is your favorite Morrigan moment? What is the one that like really tickles you, stimulates you, inspires you, challenges you? Because there are so many different ways that the goddess shows up time and again in the lore. If you would like to access some free teaching specifically on the Morrigan, go to themorrigan.academy and take a 5-day challenge. You sign up for the list there and you will receive an email from us every day for 5 days, which will prompt you to read a bit more of the lore, to consider it, to think about the goddess in that way. And we have more content available there and in the Irish Pagan School. If you're looking for further, like just general Irish Pagan teaching, go to irishpagan.school/free. We got a whole year's worth of free content there available to you. And thank you very much for stopping by and engaging and enjoying with this. Until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Agus slán. Goodbye.